let's do this. Welcome to Lily Abernathy's Skeptic Tank. That's right, we're going 3 for 3 on Stealing Dead podcasts. We gave you the new Real podcast with all the new segments. We did the multiple small rants last week on Lily Abernathy is Going to Hell. So this week, as we are in a foreign country, we decided it was time to Jew a Jew and do a podcast that is basically just an intro that is nothing but rambling. I mean, the old Skeptic Tank would have 40-minute intros sometimes, and while we aren't going to do 40 minutes for the entirety of the episode, we don't mind doing just an intro as it's just a bunch of babbling anyway. So some things that I have been up to this past week. Season 6. Chapter 1 of Fortnite has started, and my god is this a peak season. If you wonder why I talk about video games so much, it's because when I was in secondary school and uni, I spent an ungodly amount of time playing the video game World of Warcraft professionally, like opening the gates of AQ, Merciless Gladiator title, World First Raid Kills, that kind of real next level. And to say that I probably learned more about life playing that game than anything I learned in school is beyond true. I genuinely believe World of Warcraft should be a class taught in schools. So while I don't take games that seriously any longer, and I don't think that I have played that game for over a decade now, I do enjoy just schooling people in some kind of PvP situation. There are several modes available. I personally don't play that gay building. It genuinely doesn't make any sense to me. But to each their own, that's kind of one of the best things about Fortnite. They allow so much personal freedom. I did have an issue with my account. That was probably related to my phone and Google account being hacked, so my username was changed, but it should be Lily Abernathy. No space in about a week again. So just drop your Epic ID if you are trying to get schooled or play duos. While eating my dinner the other evening, I went to YouTube to see what was available to watch. While I don't normally watch the show, I saw that Dave Smith's part of the problem was currently live on YouTube, so I threw it on while I was eating. It's pretty funny to watch someone go from constantly on someone to endorsing them to right back to on them within the matter of like a month and a half. Libertarians are weird. That whole party has so many different ideas of what to do, and I don't believe they will ever figure it out. And look, you really aren't ever going to see me talk too much about the skanks. I've met all of them personally several times. It's been a few years since I've seen any of them, but they were always very kind to me and Dave and his wife especially. But my god, politics are just so gay. Supporting any politician is just weird. It is not a normal position to strive for. Seriously, give me one example of like a pure politician. You can't, because they're all human with flaws. You never truly know someone anyway. I mean, look at Ari, the former host of this podcast Skeptic Tank. Someone who in the past did things like the amazing racist, is now doing things like on stage and throwing an ungodly amount of support for, as well as shade at people over the Tony Hinchcliffe situation recently. Ari is getting old, and with nothing real like a family and a completely drug-addled mind, you can see him losing his sense of humor in real time like Rogan. Maybe it's an age thing, or maybe it's just being involved in the Rogan-verse, or maybe it's fame and money, I don't know, but dude is getting lame. I'm not old, involved with the Rogan-verse, famous, or have nearly the amount of money some of these comedians make, so I honestly wouldn't know. It could be a combination of all the things. Speaking of comedy, I have been noticing a major shift happening in comedy, where many people, myself included to some degree, thought that the Trump victory would somehow bring us back to 2016 levels of comedy. I just don't feel the same way at this point. I've watched a few newer podcasts this week for the first time, some with some very famous but newer comedians, and I've got to say, they just have a different vibe. They could literally give two f***s about politics. They are more open to comedy, not just being stand-up, and they have also had time to adapt to podcasts and understand that they don't all have to be a repeat of something like the JRE or Matt and Shane's Secret podcast. Let's take a moment to talk about Matt and Shane. It's just been weird lately. I understand that Shane is beyond busy making sure all of his friends don't have to work a normal job for the rest of their lives. But the show just is not good when it's not the both of them. Matt is famous enough that he should just start his own separate podcast. But really, what the do I care? The show has peaked and won't ever return to what it was in its heyday, even if both of them are present. I guess it just isn't the same when you aren't a hungry wolf anymore. And while we are on the topic of Matt and Shane, let's talk about the Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast Extended Cinematic Universe. Look, I like most of the Philly guys and most of the people in the MASSPECU, but there are a couple of them who I won't name at the moment, who are clearly overextending their relationship to Shane and his fame in comparison to their actual skill level in comedy, and the attitudes I'm seeing come with it are absolutely delusional. Again, I'm not going to name any names, but someone in the MASSPECU has a podcast that even this podcast gets more views than. Now, not that I would, but it would be pretty cool to piggyback off of someone that is probably multiple friend groups removed, outside of comedy, and have enough money to just uproot my life and move to a more expensive city than I currently live in. Must be nice. But we will save this possible podcast war for a different time. Got to catch people when they least expect it type of thing. Some other things I heard about in the Comedyverse this week was Andrew Schultz apparently getting dissed by Kendrick Lamar. I believe I saw something along the lines of Andrew said he would be able to rape Kendrick in person because he's a bigger person and boxes. I don't like Kendrick. I think he has always been an overrated, full of himself, probably has Napoleon syndrome kind of guy. But man, how funny to watch someone that has a decent amount of the population currently paying attention to them just rip into that wigger. I mean, Schultz's whole identity is look how not white I am, even though I married basically a white plank board that looks like a boy for a wife. He's arguably only famous because Charlemagne took an interest in him so that they could get that grift fest known as Brilliant Idiots going. If listening to two grifters, one a wigger and one a closeted black man with no real convictions about anything, constantly play devil's advocate to each other over the dumbest takes, then Brilliant Idiots may be the perfect podcast for you. Since we are on the topic of wiggers, I wanted to point out that we might need to start separating wiggers into two categories: city wigger like Andrew Schultz and southern wigger. I've got to say, while they are both similar at their core, they are actually two very different types of people. I might even want to suggest a third category, like Midwest wigger, like your Gary Owen types, but honestly, I think he probably leans more towards a city wigger anyways. Alright now, let's start the episode. Skeptic Tank number 520, the intro episode.
Lily Abernathy owns this song. Lily Abernathy owns this song. Lily Abernathy owns this song. This song is owned by Lily Abernathy.
Right, I think that about wraps it up for this week. No real topic, still having to deal with the repercussions from my stolen wallet and credit cards. But we do have some topics coming up here soon, like Forever, Friendless Tony, and a special request from some months back by friend of the show, Drew Huntley, for a bad of comedy about Esther King, formerly Pavitsky. Shout out Sumo Dog and Super Mario World for the SNES. Oh, also, I keep mentioning it, and I probably will for the foreseeable future, but if you have not checked out the Crowder Boys episode, The Arena of Ideas number 2, you need to after you finish this episode. It is top-tier content and should be watched by everyone. I'm pretty sure several of YouTube's terms of service were broken in that episode, and I look forward to the next Arena of Ideas, which I believe is not next week, but the following. It will be round 2 of PJ, aka Pandatron, versus Broke Degen. I have started working on a special Mortal Kombat-esque promo for the event. I'm sure I will be releasing next week. Genuinely thank you to everyone that listens. There's some dude in Denmark that downloads every episode and left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. So shout out to you, whoever you are. Oh, last thing, if anyone can connect me to Ryan Shaner, I would like to do an episode of YFI with him. This week's outro is a faux intro I made for what I believe is Robbie Goodwin's next solo podcast transition, Robbiewood. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. Follow us at Podcast the Pod on YouTube and X, formerly Twitter. This is Lily Abernathy signing off.
Real spin, we're diving in the flicks. Robbie's breaking down the plot, no tricks. Critique sharp, but the laughs are thick. And Robbie Wood, we're shining like a box office hit. Robbie Wood, where the takes hit different. No rules, just films and riffs relentless. Lights flicker, but the vibe stays vivid. With Robbie and friends, we're flipping the script.